Buffy the Vampire Slayer is the very definition of a cult show. It's been off the air for over 15 years now, but it's no less beloved for it. Part of the reason for this is that Joss Whedon has a knack for filling his creations with amazing Easter eggs and hidden bonuses that only appear on rewatches. Whether it's foreshadowing for future plot points, recurring characters, or moments that strike you a different way the second time around, Buffy has all kinds of additional content for the repeat watcher. Many of its ardent fans will no doubt agree you simply cannot get bored of Buffy. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 11 small details you only notice rewatching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Number 11, Demon Days. Vengeance demons are one of Buffy's finest creations. The most prominent is, of course, Anya, now in human form and an erstwhile member of the Scooby Gang. But we also spend a lot of time with Halfric, Anya's friend and former colleague. Halfric is undeniably a scene stealer, but watch the show again and you'll realise that you have indeed seen her before. That's because for a time in the late 1800s, she led an ordinary upper crust existence as Cecily, the unrequited love of William Pratt, better known as Spike. The series never expands on this history, but given William's bloodlust began as a direct result of his rejection at Cecily's hands, it seems she was working in the interest of vengeance even in this guise. The connection between Cecily and Halfric is never stated in the show, but has been confirmed by Whedon. The rest is up to the viewer's own imagination. Number 10, Sabotage. As season 4 progresses, Willow nurtures two interests, witchcraft and love interest Tara. As the young Wiccans' relationship blossoms, they attempt to utilize their newfound skills to help Buffy track down an elusive demon. As the spell reaches its peak though, Tara sabotages their efforts, blowing away some magical powder when Willow isn't looking. Little is made of this at the time, and it's an incident you can easily forget by the time the season 5 episode Family rolls around. In this episode, Tara's titular family show up to drop the bombshell that she is in fact half demon. It transpires that she is no such thing later on, but suddenly her earlier squirreliness makes perfect sense. It's not just a little neat payoff, but rather elegant storytelling. Tara's fear of who she really is led her to hide herself from Willow, and now that it's all in the open, their relationship can and does really blossom. Number 9, Anointed. After the vanquishing of Season 1 Big Bad the Master, the position of chief antagonist was to be occupied by the Anointed One. This little creep was chosen to lead the vampire race, but then, a few episodes into Season 2, he was hurled into the sunlight by Spike and Drusilla. It was a shocking moment to say the least, and set up Spike and Drusilla as the true villains, though they were eventually usurped by Angelus. But in retrospect, the Anointed One was never going to be a long-term fixture for the simple fact that he was a young boy, and young boys by their nature grow. That little fact when you're playing an immortal child demon is something of a deal breaker. However, the pomp with which the Anointed One is introduced does suggest that the writers did originally intend on him playing a larger role, but the basics of human biology coupled with the more dynamic characters they later introduced into the plot meant that it was scrapped. It is the rare example of a lack of foresight on a Joss Whedon production. Number 8, a telling costume. Towards the end of Buffy's final season, Xander conducts traffic as the gang battle against evil priest Caleb. Noticing this, the villain declares that Xander sees everything and accordingly gouges his eye out. More than a full season earlier, however, the seeds were laying for this plot point. In Season 6 episode All the Way, Xander shows off his pirate Halloween costume, complete with, you guessed it, an eye patch. Granted, the patch doesn't cover the eye that Xander will lose later on, but given Joss Whedon's reputation as a writer who plans way in advance, there's no way this isn't deliberate. It's kind of like the arm off hint in Arrested Development, but way more sinister. Xander's frustration at essentially being powerless in a gang of superheroes grows over the final season, and it isn't until late on that the writers develop the idea that he's the one who really notices what's going on around him. Naturally, this becomes a case of be careful what you wish for, as his observational skills lead to him being targeted in one of the final battles. Number 7, coming out. The exploration of Willow's sexuality is one of Buffy's proudest legacies. Rewatching though, this was set up way before it ever actually explicitly entered the story, because in the Season 3 episode Doppelgangland, a vampire version of Willow is brought to Sunnydale from an alternate universe. It's here where Willow observes her sexually liberated lookalike and quickly notes that she's kinda gay. Dialogue from Angel goes on to confirm that the vampire version of yourself essentially would maintain all of your regular characteristics. Willow would go on to enjoy a committed relationship with Tara as opposed to the hedonistic lifestyle practiced by Vampire Willow, but her uninhibited undead self shows that these desires were always simmering under the surface. Coupling this with the eventual brief turn to evil that also happens, and Doppelgangland is an important episode for this character. Number 6. Little Miss Muffet. In Season 3 Closer Graduation Day Part 2, Buffy and Rogue Slayer Faith both find themselves comatose. After this, they meet in a dream state and enjoy a civil, if oblique, conversation. It seems like little more than just a mood setter, as Faith makes confusing references to something Buffy has to take care of, and then Buffy dismisses it as riddles and soon wakes up. It sounds like an oddly worded reminder of the Chosen One's responsibilities, but watch it back and you'll see that it pretty much maps out the entire plot of Season 5. The key line, however, is Faith's "Miles to go, Little Miss Muffet" counting down from 730. Eagle-eyed fans have noted, and Joss Whedon has confirmed, that 730 is the number of days until Season 5 Closer the Gift, in which Buffy sacrifices herself for humanity. Miles to Go refers to a line from a Robert Frost poem about death, and Little Miss Muffet is Dawn, yet to debut on the show, who is referred to as Curds and Whey by a mentally ill man in Season 5. How much of this was intentional at the time rather than reverse engineered is unclear, but it's fair to say that Joss Whedon's long-term planning is second to none. Number 5. Little Sis is coming. The dream foreshadowing doesn't stop there though. Season 4 Closer Restless is a divisive episode, with the vast majority of screen time being taken up by dreams. It feels a bit throwaway on first watch, but in retrospect, the seeds are set for a lot of what comes in the story next. In Buffy's dream, she enters a bedroom to find Tara. They have a conversation that refers back to a previous dream, and after some typical mysterious dream chat, Tara tells Buffy to, quote, "be back before dawn." On second viewing, this one's pretty obvious, but it does go deeper than that. The dream Buffy and Tara discuss again features Faith, who in an earlier episode is making a bed in the exact same room where we first see Dawn. And cutting the BS, this time Faith explicitly states that Little Sis is coming. At this point, it's safe to assume that the entirety of the next season's storyline was more or less mapped out, and the revelation that Buffy suddenly has a sister is one of the show's most audacious moments, and that means that these hints a season earlier couldn't possibly be picked up by even the keenest viewers, but they are there. And upon a further rewatch, Joss Whedon's plan becomes explicitly clear. Number 4. Test of Strength. Buffy's final season featured the Turok Han, an ancient race of super vampire. When Buffy first encounters a single one of these big bads, she almost completely dies, and it's only a good while later that she's actually able to best one in an epic bout. Rewatch Season 7 though, and this scene makes a lot less sense. The climax to the series sees Buffy and the Awakened Slayers descend into the Hellmouth for a final war against evil, where wave upon wave of Turok Han charge straight at them. The forces of good stand their ground and then kill hundreds of these supposedly super-powered monsters with complete ease. The problem is there's nothing to explain this either. Sure, Buffy et al. Had been training heavily, but this level of improvement over such a short amount of time should have set off alarm bells at the doping committee or something. Joss Whedon, to his credit, has acknowledged the discrepancy on the finale's audio commentary and has not hastily made up an excuse of why they can suddenly beat all of these uber monsters. However, we probably don't really need an explanation for this. After 7 years of great telly, we can kind of hand wave this one away because the scene in question is awesome and the finale is great. Number 3. Crossing Over. Angel is up there with Frasier as one of the best TV spin-offs ever, and it works great as a standalone series. The real genius, however, comes when Buffy and Angel are watched side by side and the chronology of the universe unfolds. For 4 seasons, the shows coexisted, and there are many great moments in which Buffy shows up in LA or Angel in Sunnydale. Through these appearances, Joss Whedon elegantly expands on the tragic tale of Buffy and Angel. Their love story is paramount to the first 3 seasons of Buffy, but they know that they can't be together, and that, for fans, is just heartbreaking. However, they still weave in and out of one another's stories, assisting one another in their respective battles against evil, but they can never share the same plane. Many online fans have created the ultimate Buffy Angel viewing guide, and for those who feel like they've seen it all too many times, this will offer a new perspective and strengthen both shows in the process. Angel continues for another post-Buffy season, but the Slayer's presence is still felt throughout, especially because Spike jumps ship over to the new show. Still, the two series work best as a unit, and with all manner of references and Easter eggs you can only pick up when watching them in tandem, it makes going through them both at the same time so rewarding. Number 2, a waste of resources. Up until its destruction at the very end of Season 3, Sunnydale High was the show's main hub, with the evil spewing Hellmouth lying just beneath the library. Buffy was forced to hide her true self from her peers as well, and blend in as an average student, which didn't always work. In retrospect, however, this was made a lot easier by the fact that no other student ever seems to want to use the library. Consequently, Giles was free to carry on his Watcher duties as a full-time job, and there was essentially no use whatsoever for a librarian. Books on all manner of monsters were dotted around the shelves, as there was no risk of any student accidentally touching them, because who in a school actually wants to read? This is even lampshaded in the show at one point when Giles sternly quizzes a boy who enters the library before reminding him that it is, in fact, part of the school. Of course, it transpires that the whole student body is basically aware of what Buffy does, so all the skulking around was basically for nothing, but it's still a miracle the school was willing to pay to keep Giles on a salary. Number 1, Clairvoyant Tara. In Season 5, Tara has her brain tampered with by the villainous Glory and spends many episodes ranging between comatose and general frantic gibbering. However, this horrific act might have just left Tara with the power of foresight. As they attempt to file past her, she seems to experience a moment of lucidity, locking eyes with Giles and stating, "You're a killer." This is easy to dismiss as being just rambling, but then you have to remember how the episode actually ends. Glory, bruised and beaten, reverts to her human form of Ben, and Buffy, as saintly as ever, can't finish the job, even though neglecting to do so will leave the door open for the murderous deity to return. So who steps up but Giles? Acknowledging the questionable nature of his actions, he then suffocates Ben, killing the monster as well as the mortal man. While Giles is undoubtedly a good man, he was capable of dark acts that the rest of the Scooby Gang would seldom dream of doing. He keeps that side of himself from the gang for the most part though, but in her altered state, he can't keep it from Tara. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are there anything that I missed off here that you noticed when you were rewatching Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel for the 1000th time? And while you're down there, can you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, you've been watching What Culture. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.